The vampire concept is hundreds of years old and has been taken in many different directions by scores of storytellers. Of course, Hollywood works its magic to create a very fantasy and magical rendition of what vampires are like. And yet, among all the vampire tales being told, what were the experiences behind the story? More than likely, these authors just researched the folklore that's been out there for hundreds of years. What you're about to hear is a personal account of one man's experience with a family of vampires. He is Michael Bodine, a nationally acclaimed psychic who's been featured many times on network television and is now the author of Growing Up Psychic, a book that is now in its third printing. I recently had a chance to speak with Michael on several paranormal subjects, one of which was his encounter with vampires.
It was probably like 1967, 1968. We went to a lot of different psychic camps, but this one was sort of like more tight security than most places. You know, it's in these woods, but on this high bluff thing. And this was kind of, you know, the other places are a little loosey-goosey. You could just tell them Birdie sent you and it wouldn't be that big a deal. But this one, I remember you did have to answer the psychic question, and you did have to have references, and you did have to have kind of a serious nature to you about it. My mom was really into it. She, I was like 10 or 11, I had to go. And so my mom kept saying stuff like, you know, we're going to meet really cool people this time. It's going to be really interesting. And she had mentioned something about vampires, that maybe, you know, there was going to be some vampires there. And I thought, yeah, whatever, Mom, because I think I remember thinking she was just telling me anything to just keep me to shut up or stop complaining. But then when we got there, Birdie, who is like 90, very, very much the elder statesman, the teacher, the person in charge, she was there, and she was giddy about meeting these people that we were going to meet. We were going to meet this so-called family of vampires, and she was just. We get there. There's all these different tents all over the place, and each tent had a different theme, and you settle in, you get your tent, and then you go around to these different places, like, you know, it's like a fair thing. And there's a variety of different things. One tent was where this guy drew pictures of your guardian angel, and people had come just to see this guy. And then there's another tent where they were doing channeling, where like real channels, you know, like where people would jump inside you, you know, and you could see their face change, and all of a sudden they'd get really young, or they'd get little. They turn Irish, you know, get little red freckles and shit. I mean, you could see it, you know, while you're sitting there. And but there was different kinds of things all over the place. But in this other tent, that was kind of a bigger tent, they had this, and we had been there for a couple hours. We walked in, and there was this family that, I can't believe it to this day. These people were very quiet. The dad did all the talking, and the mom did a little talking, but the two kids didn't say a thing. But their skin was like white, like not even white, like clear white. It glowed white. It was, and they had clothes on, but what wasn't covered, you could see the veins, and their eyes were kind of clear, but they were piercing. I don't know how to describe it. There was a little uncomfortability with it, because it's kind of like having a wild animal, you know, and talking to a wild animal, because you know that we're food, and so there's a little tension there. I know that there's all these stories about glamour and all that stuff about vampires. I could totally see that, because you're just so fascinated by looking at them and their eyes and how they can kind of look right through you.
So they had a very captivating presence.
Oh man, totally. But I don't think that they were necessarily attractive people, but they were you were really drawn to them. And, you know, I could sit and talk to them or listen to them for that whole night. And,
so you can see how, as the movie or the story goes, that somebody that could just be charmed into...
Well, yeah, it's kind of like
into a room and never walk out.
Yeah, it's like a frog in a flashlight. You know, you just... You sit and stare, and in the meantime, they grab you and they put you in a bag. That's the way it felt like. I felt like that's how it works. You're concentrating on looking at them, and they could do anything you want, and you wouldn't even care. It's a weird thing because you're fascinated by it. I was fascinated by it. Their body gave off a coldness.
But they were approachable.
Very, very approachable. Yeah, like he would say, we've been around for centuries, and she would agree. And sweet. The woman, I thought the woman was beautiful, but I don't know if that was just because the way her eyes were, but she was definitely, I think, the strongest of all of them.
Really?
Yeah, because she had this, you could tell that if she was...
So she was the one probably in control?
I think so.
Even though the guy was the one doing all the talking?
I think he was supposed to do all the talking. I think she was the one that was in control. And they didn't care. If you didn't believe him, it didn't matter to them. If you didn't believe him, you were missing the whole point and you were stupid. And see, the thing about them was that they weren't there to like show off being vampires. They weren't like, look at us, we're vampires. It was like that they tolerated certain questions, like, so do you, is it true that you just drink blood? And the father said, yeah, we prefer human blood, but we will drink animal blood. But that's what our stomachs will tolerate. And they didn't flinch. It's like they had heard these questions 1,000 times. They weren't impressed or anything like that. But really, it wasn't about them being vampires. It was about them saying, look, there's tons of stuff going on that you guys have no clue about. And being vampire or being a werewolf or being a nature spirit and all that stuff it's going on. And here's proof. And you don't have to believe me if you don't want to. It's like they didn't care if we believed them or not. It's like you can believe your own eyes or you don't have to believe your own eyes. And they weren't out to prove it or anything like that. But there was something, they didn't have any makeup on, and there was something that looked out of this world.
Supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. And
thank you for watching this exclusive story from Intrigue Journal. If you haven't already done so, please go to intriguejournal.com and subscribe to our free Inbox magazine for those of you who have an interest in the bizarre, the paranormal, and other mysteries. Subscribe now, and you'll also get Michael Bodine's account of what it is like to remove ghosts from people's homes.
Somebody taps him on the shoulder and he freaks out and they're ready to move, Sometimes you go in and the walls are bleeding and things are shaking and moving around, but that doesn't happen that often. And when it does, it's interesting, but it's not scary. It's just like, okay, nice show, and I ain't gonna clean up the blood, but here, I can get you out of here,
You will also hear about his take on the possibility of werewolves.
And that they tend to be a little bit angry anyway with their lives, but that the moon would make it unbearable or impossible for them not to be more
aggressive.
Yeah, more aggressive, and they would supposedly get much stronger.
And finally, you will hear about his experience as an exorcist. Okay, but what about the person or in this case, the little girl that's possessed? Would she all of a sudden be able to start saying stuff about other people in the room?
Yeah.
Personal details that she wouldn't have any way of knowing?
They would do stuff to try and scare you, do stuff to get under your ghost.
So you have seen a little bit of that?
Absolutely. You know what it's all about?
Intriguejournal.com. Subscribe now.